46.
Commissioner Adams,
Here.
Commissioner Banks, Commissioner Budashevsky,
Here.
Commissioner Cummings,
Here.
Commissioner Kaiser,
Here.
Commissioner LaRoche,
Here.
and Commissioner Parsons.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Now we'll move to approval of minutes from January 5th, 2021, Annual Organizational Meeting. And looking for discussion or a motion, Commissioner Adams.
I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes.
All right, looking for a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Adams,
Aye.
Commissioner Banks, Commissioner Budashevsky,
Aye.
Commissioner Cummings,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaiser,
Aye.
Commissioner LaRoche,
Aye.
Commissioner Parsons.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next on the agenda is the presentation of the 2020 Annual Report.
Thank you, Madam President and Matt, for bringing up the presentation. We'll give the clicker a try here. All right. All right, Matt, I'm just going to have you advance manually, if that's okay. Great, thank you. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Scattered Site Redevelopment Program, which I think many of you are familiar with. We did not sell any lots in 2020, not because there wasn't demand for residential lots. There was massive demand across the Twin Cities. But we didn't have any lots to sell. All the EDA properties that we own, there aren't really that many of them anymore, and they all have redevelopment challenges of one sort or another. So what we did for this map is we kind of separated the lot locations by two different colors. The gray are the ones that the lots that we sold prior to the housing crash of around 12 years ago, and then the orange are the ones that we've sold in the recovery since then. So we sort of have two roughly 10-year periods, and then each of those had a year where we sold no lots, 2009 and 2020. So don't know when we'll be able to sell lots going forward, hopefully next year, maybe later this year. But we thought this map would kind of illustrate not only the distribution generally, but also how there were many more lots in the northern part of the city sold during the more recent recovery phase relative to the housing bubble phase before 2009. Next slide. So this is a chart, again, you've seen before. It's just been updated. The red line indicates lot sale prices. The blue line indicates the sale prices of the homes when they were finished and sold, which includes, of course, the value of the land. And the green line is sort of, think of it as a way of adjusting for inflation. The green line is the current Hennepin County Assessor's estimated market value. And again, we really have two different eras here. The homes built during the housing bubble years were generally larger and more expensive, and also some of those have had their basements finished since then, which increases the value. So if you're wondering why the homes during that era have a present value that's higher than the ones during the lots sold during the last 10 years, there are a couple of reasons for that. This next slide shows you in red and green where we've acquired properties in red, and green where we've sold lots. And the important areas to look at here are right in the middle of the chart where there's a lot of red, not much green. That was the crash. And then as we started selling lots into the recovery, you can see for the last several years, we've sold many lots, but we have not purchased many properties. That's simply because we got most of the tear downs, the ones that needed to be torn down. We got those during the crash at very good prices, usually from the banks who had foreclosed. So we were able to demolish many of the houses in Crystal that really weren't worth fixing up, and there aren't many of those left. So that's a good thing. We're in a good place. And the lack of lots to sell now, I think, is actually an indicator of success. Our program did what the EDA always intended it to do. Moving on to existing homes, our home improvement program, as you recall from perhaps a meeting in November where we had to amend the budget, our home improvement program has been very successful in encouraging people to make improvements to their homes. I think 2020 might have been an even more extraordinary here just because so many people were stuck at home during the pandemic, looking around their house, realizing how many things they wanted to change. But whatever the reason is, we had a lot of single-family construction activity, even though we didn't really have a lot of big projects in the city, and that is reflected in what happened with the home improvement grants in 2020. And you can see from the map that they're distributed throughout all parts of the city. Next slide. So we also have a couple other programs that aren't used as much. The Community Fix-Up Fund loan is basically an interest subsidy where we buy down the interest rate to make home improvement programs more affordable. And the important thing to know about that is people can pair that with the home improvement grant, which typically covers 20% of the cost of the project. So you can do the home improvement grant for 20% of the cost and then use the Community Fix-Up Fund loan for the other 80%. And then the one on the right, the deferred home rehab loans, those are targeted to lower income households, typically older folks who want to stay in their home but they don't have the resources to do the repairs. And that's a deferred loan that is forgiven if they continue to own and occupy the house for 15 years. And that's kind of a steady state program. Every year we do around 5 of those, and when I say we, it's actually the county that administers it. But we do about 5 of those, and the project cost is usually between $100,000 and $150,000 for all 5 of the houses. Next slide. Moving on to some of the things we've done around our commercial districts, we did expand our beautification efforts last year. We started with 8 boxes on Bass Lake Road in 2019. We added 12 more boxes, so we have 20 now. And those additional boxes were placed on 42nd Avenue and also on Douglas Drive just south of 36th. What we're trying to do here is find spots of hardscape where we just don't have the resources, the money to tear it up and build brand new streetscaping in those areas where we have hardscape because that's where the road salt and the snow has to go or various other reasons. This is a way to beautify those things on a seasonal basis at relatively low cost. So we expanded that effort by adding those boxes in those 2 other business districts. Next slide. Something that came out of the pandemic, one of many different new things that we did because of that, was the Love Local Business District Initiative. This was a Hennepin County pilot project to try to promote local businesses during business districts or in business districts during the holiday season throughout the county. Our Bass Lake Road strip was selected as one of the 11 throughout the county. It included a billboard in each district. There were print ads you may have seen in the Sun Post. There was actually a color flyer for all 11 districts in both the Star Tribune and the Sun Post. They provided a communications toolkit with a website and social media copy, and then we, of course, used that in many different times on our social media channels. And on the left are a couple examples of the type of, the top one is a post that we created, and the bottom one is a print ad that was in the Sun Post. What did we learn from this? At least as far as Crystal goes, this didn't really move the needle for the local businesses during the holiday season. It isn't that they didn't appreciate the effort, but the ones that I talked to it didn't seem to matter much to them. One of the reasons I think for that is during the holiday season, there's so much going on. It's kind of hard to tell, and and that leads to kind of the bottom bullet there. The best way to do this, I think the main thing we learned is these are all great tools, but you have to use them in a sustained manner for a long period of time, and the results emerge gradually. It's not something you can do in a 6-week period to, really push up the sales during the holiday season. That's not the way this kind of thing works. We're trying to create a branding identity for our business districts. We're trying to make the community aware of all the businesses that we have here in Crystal that maybe they've never paid attention to or they never noticed. That kind of thing takes time, and it's gradual, and so we have lots of tools we can build on going forward, even though this particular project didn't seem to do much during the most recent holiday season. And then,
May I interrupt?
Yeah.
This was a pilot project from Hennepin County?
Correct.
Is that going to continue, or is that done?
I do not believe it's going to continue, but the tools that were created as part of it are things we can continue to use and expand to other districts in the city besides the Bass Lake Road Strip, and that's our intent. It just ended, so we haven't really figured out exactly how to do that yet, but it would be something that's scalable. We can expand it throughout the city, and we can do it over a longer period of time. And the tools, in other words, were created by the pilot project, but we can use them and adapt them at no cost going forward.
Excellent, thank you.
And then we did help reach out to our businesses to connect them with resources from other levels of government, especially the state and the county, had COVID relief targeted for businesses. And one example is that there were 74 Crystal businesses that received assistance from Hennepin County for a total of just under $700,000. I think all across the city, you'll find that every department ended up doing things differently or having to do new things altogether because of the pandemic as part of our response. One of the things we never had was a list of businesses, email addresses, so that we could do notification emails. Now, it isn't complete simply because not all businesses have shared their email addresses with us. But we made a concerted effort to reach as many as we could, including face-to-face contact for those businesses that respond best to that. And so we will be able to use this now going forward for other purposes. Once the pandemic ends, we'll have this channel to reach out directly to businesses about any number of issues that might be of concern to them. Next slide. And then finally, this is the annual map of city property. Because we didn't sell any lots, it didn't change from 2019's map, so perhaps enough said on that. But I would be happy to answer any questions on the annual report. No actions required of the EDA, but we certainly would be willing to receive any feedback and make adjustments as needed.
Excellent, thank you, John. Any questions or discussion on John's presentation? Okay.
Can I throw
Go ahead.
So city other, could you describe city other to me when it's, in terms of property?
So that would be distinct from EDA properties or parks or pond areas. So that would be Public Works, that would be the
Okay.
community
All right,
center, City Hall, and
Okay.
other properties that are not parks or ponds and are not EDA properties.
Yeah, I was looking at it going like, what the heck is that? You know, and then sure enough, there it is, yeah.
All right.
Awesome, thank you.
And go ahead, Nancy.
Thanks. John, are we going to have an areas of opportunity meeting for EDA this year, do you think?
You mean for redevelopment? Yeah, I'll talk about that in the work program a little bit. We actually are going to have individual flyers
Okay.
for redevelopment sites where the property owners have expressed a desire for us to help them market their property as a potential site. So we'll talk about that in the work program, but that's definitely something, in fact, we're already working on it now. We just don't have them all done yet.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, if there's no more discussion on that, we'll move on to agenda item 5, consider approval of 2021 work program. And John again.
Thank you again. Next slide, please, Matt. So the first thing that I want to mention is something that we gave you a preview of late last year that is going to be on your next meeting agenda on March 2nd, and that is we need to amend the tax increment financing district budget for the housing district, our one remaining TIF district, as per the charts on the right-hand side of the slide, which again you saw late last year. This district will expire at the end of 2025, which means after 2025 we will not be collecting that increment anymore, but we'll have enough of a fund balance that we can continue to fund our home improvement grant program for probably at least a few more years after that. And we need to amend our TIF budget to reflect both the amount of revenue that we expect to receive from that district before it expires, and then the level of expenditures to expend the fund balance down to zero for these programs. So that will be on your agenda for March 2nd, and then the council will have a public hearing on it on March 16th. So next slide. So, speaking of development opportunities, which Commissioner LaRoche brought up, we continue to meet with developers, and the focus has been on the town center area, centered on Becker Park. Redevelopment is tough to get it to happen for so many different reasons, and the pandemic has just made that worse. Both the development side and the financial side, they're even more cautious than they were because of the pandemic. They're even more cautious now. So in addition, we have the barriers that we always had, which was we don't have a lot of vacant land. We have one vacant site that I'll talk about in development update later in the evening. But also our commercial areas are still relatively healthy despite what's happening in the retail and office market. Our commercial retail vacancy is in the just over 10% maybe, which sounds bad, but for commercial property, that's actually that's okay. That's considered a balanced market in retail. And it's better than a lot of our peer cities. So what that does, though, is it makes those property owners maybe not so interested in selling, right? Because they're doing fine. So that is why that the pace of redevelopment is not moving as quickly. I think the uncertainty with the Blue Line extension also hasn't helped. So what are we doing in 2021 to try to move things along? We're going to prepare one-pagers for several redevelopment sites where we've reached out to owners and they have said that they are interested in talking to developers. We've already sort of done this on a verbal basis, but now we're going to do one-pagers. It's like an elevator pitch for developers so they can see on one sheet of paper the most pertinent facts about what redevelopment could happen on that site. You know, how many units could go there if it's multifamily, you know, what the parcels are and all that. All aerial photos, maybe some utility info, all that stuff on one sheet that we can send out to anybody who's interested in a particular site. We'll continue to follow up with the developers that we have already been talking to. I think we've met with probably 30 different developers over the last year and a half, some of them multiple times. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to seek out additional developers. And we are going to continue to try to get Hennepin County to partner with us on the realignment of that intersection of Douglas Drive and West Broadway. In talking about the challenges of redevelopment, it's actually that southern end of our town center area, the area kind of around that intersection, where we have some of the property. We have the one vacant site that you're familiar with just north of Big Louie's, but we also have some other properties that, because of the fairly large parcels of land with not a lot of building value on them, that there's potential for redevelopment there, perhaps greater than in the northern part of our downtown area, which is more of a healthy retail environment. So we think that intersection realignment could really be the catalyst to make things work better there, and it would also solve other problems in terms of traffic operations, access to the businesses on Hanson Court, and provide a much better pedestrian connection through that intersection, which I think if any of you have walked through that intersection, you know how bad it is in terms of how it's currently configured. So we have multiple reasons to explore that, and that's something we're really going to push for this year, and hopefully we'll have more on that later in the year. Our goal is to put together 1 to 2 redevelopment site deals this year for construction next year. Beautification and branding, we're going to continue with what we did before with the planter boxes. We have funds to purchase, I said 8 in here, actually we got a quote, we could do 10, so we were leaning towards maybe doing 10 more boxes. We'd put some of those on that big concrete median on 36th Avenue, just west of the 100 ramps. Again, that's one of those areas with a lot of hardscape, and it would be tens of thousands of dollars to do like a permanent irrigated landscaping with a city entrance sign, welcome to Crystal, something like that. Well, this is a very low-cost way we can try to beautify that area until we have the resources to do something more permanent. So that is one of the reasons we want to purchase more boxes. We'd also like to increase the number of boxes in the areas we already have to kind of increase the concentration and the impact of those flower boxes. So that's what we're planning to do this year. We're also going to continue the litter cleanup that we have been doing. because that does seem to have made a difference. Next slide. We are also going to try again to get Hennepin County to help pay for a facade incentive program. A couple big challenges here are most of our commercial spaces are not owner occupied. So the party benefiting from the real estate investment isn't necessarily the tenant. And so you need both parties to want to do this for it to happen. And the other part is something we haven't really talked with you about because we haven't got to that point yet. But if we are successful in getting funding from the county, we're going to need to have some pretty significant design requirements to ensure that what we're helping pay for is what the community wants. And that we're not spending money on something that doesn't really make things look better anyway. And, or isn't just maintenance that the property owner should be doing anyway without our assistance. So those are challenges we'd have to wrestle with, but the first step is for Hennepin County to decide that they are going to continue to fund this program, which they probably won't make that decision until we get through the pandemic, at least most of the way through it, and then we can try to get help from them to fund this. We're looking at murals. I didn't mention it on here, but we're also looking at maybe wrapping some of the traffic signal boxes, those ugly metal boxes that we control for our own signals and our own street lights, maybe with some wayfinding or something. We might do that instead of murals. That might be a more effective use of any time that we put into it. And then finally, we're going to use the town center branding in those one-pager marketing sheets about development sites. And then we'll gradually expand that over time in other contexts. And I will not go through all the disposition of EDA properties, but I would be happy to answer any questions on those or any of these other items in the annual report, or the work program, excuse me. We are asking that you do approve a motion to approve the work program for 2021.
All right, thank you so much, John. Nancy?
John, could you go back to the slide with the planter boxes on the medians by 36? I just had a question on that grassy property, just to the, right up above.
Right.
Is that city property for snow and?
That is owned by MnDOT.
MnDOT, that's
yes.
right.
There was a time when MnDOT was interested in selling that for development.
Mm-hmm.
And then they decided that they wanted to keep it for snow storage. Most recently, they have expressed a willingness to consider that for non-residential use because they don't need it for snow storage like they thought they did, but there's a parcel in Robbinsdale just northeast of it, across Veracruz from River Tree School. It's kind of a triangular parcel that they're still using for snow storage or will continue to use.
Okay.
And they're afraid if they let this be developed for residential, then those residents will complain about all the MnDOT trucks driving by 24/7 during snow removal operations. So we have reached out to them. We're waiting for them to get back to us about the actual process to sell that for development. But as of now, it is MnDOT property, and we're not at a point where we can market it, for lack of a better word, for development.
Okay, thanks.
Jim?
Question on the same piece of property. I believe I've been seeing crystal trucks dropping off snow in there. Is
What?
that accurate?
I can neither confirm nor deny that statement.
Oh, okay.
Allegedly.
The reason, one of the things that I thought, if I could, it's just barren and not very attractive. And I didn't know if there was anything we could do or MnDOT could do to.
Well, as far as the grass, that's just standard MnDOT, you know, holding turf, or what do you want to call it, weeds, I guess. I mean, it's what results when they're done with the road project and they put their standard seed mix down. And it gets beat up because it has been used for snow storage by MnDOT over the years. So I think, let me give you an example. So a great use there would be like a daycare center, right? Something that's used during the day, but there aren't people trying to sleep there at night. And it's about the right size for that. And that's actually what we were working on. Then MnDOT said, no, we want to use it for snow storage. the same developer reached out to us, reached out to MnDOT again, asked them again, and they had, much to my surprise, change their mind. But they don't move very quickly in disposing of these excess properties. So we're just waiting for them to do that process.
Okay.
And I still hope that we can do some non-residential use in that location.
Me too.
Jim, go ahead.
What would you like to see there? What do you think?
Well, small office would be great, but there's not a lot of market for that right now. Something like a daycare or something on that scale would be perfect, given the size of the site, its location, something that wouldn't be open in the evening, or at least not late into the evening. Yeah.
Right.
City limit being a challenge there too.
Oh, yeah. Mark just brought up something, it's not shown on the map, but if you were to extend Veracruz straight south, right through the center of the intersection where the ramp signal is, just to the right of where our planter boxes are gonna go, there's a north-south line, and then it actually turns east, but that is the Robbinsdale-Crystal border. So our site doesn't go, the MnDOT site that's a potential for development doesn't go all the way to the noise wall or to that southbound off-ramp. It actually stops on a north-south line that would line up with the center of Veracruz. So the site isn't as big as it might look in the aerial.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
But you could probably do some kind of land swap or something like that, couldn't you? I mean, that's typically what we've done in the past, where you know,
Oh, I just,
kind of like trade off to be able to make the piece of property bigger, since you have the time. You know?
Well, the land swap, detachment and annexation, it's called, concurrent detachment and annexation. The process is not as simple as it should be for two cities to adjust a boundary like that. And while it would make our site a bit bigger, it wouldn't make it that much bigger. So I hadn't really thought of that for that reason, but
Okay.
we certainly would explore that. If a developer has a use that needs just a little bit more land, that's one option. The other option would be for them to do some type of an easement for, say, stormwater or something, to use that Robbinsdale land in a way that enables them to maximize the use of the parcel they're actually buying through us from MnDOT. So we need to get to the point of site layout and design before we get to that. That's a good idea, and we'll certainly explore that if site constraints become an issue.
All right, any other comments or questions on that? And we need to approve the work program, so I'm looking for a motion. Nancy, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 work program.
Looking for a second? Jim, go ahead,
I'll second that motion.
and we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Adams,
Aye.
Commissioner Banks, Commissioner Budiszewski,
Aye.
Commissioner Cummings,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaiser,
Aye.
Commissioner LaRoche,
Aye.
Commissioner Parsons.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you so much. That was a very good presentation. All right, moving on to item number 6, development update.
Well, I do not have a slideshow for this, so that's good. This will be faster. I wanted to first talk about the redevelopment sites that we have been working with developers where our discussions have gotten a little further along. The first one I want to mention is the north side of Bass Lake Road between Elmhurst and Broadway, the Bass Lake Road Strip as it's often called. The developer, as you recall, was looking at the eastern block, which is the larger of the two blocks of buildings. And I think we notified you back in January that we got some new information, or they got some new information from the owner about the longer-term leases, and that probably means that redevelopment of that block is not feasible, well, at least not for the foreseeable future. However, that developer is now looking at the westerly block where Nokomis Shoes is. He is talking with that property owner. That owner owns all of the west block, so it's just one owner instead of 3. And he is exploring the potential for redevelopment of that westerly block, or basically a smaller version of what he was talking about doing, a 4-story multifamily, market rate multifamily building on the easterly block. So stay tuned. As soon as we know more about that, we will bring that back to you for discussion and reaction. The Crystal Gallery Mall, as you know, the Pizza Ranch closed several months ago. The Blue Line Project Office is still technically leasing a big chunk of the office space in that mall, but their lease ends at the end of the year, and there's no indication that they will be renewing that lease. That mall will be more than 50% vacant, or approximately 50% vacant, by the end of 2021. So the developer is at least exploring the potential for redevelopment. I do not know if they're going to proceed with that, but we hope to have more information for you in a couple of weeks based on what the property owner is telling us about their discussions with developers. And then finally, as I mentioned, there are several sites around the potential realignment of Douglas Drive and West Broadway in the south end of our redevelopment area. We have learned that Woda Cooper companies, who had proposed that 53-unit workforce housing mixed income building on the vacant lots north of Big Louie's, that they have sort of lost their option. That's not the correct term, but I think you know what I mean, for those lots. And the broker for those lots has indicated that they have worked out a deal with a different party, and we do not know what that deal would be. We presume it's something similar for some type of new multifamily residential development. So we will certainly bring that to you when we have more information. Moving on to some smaller properties, still no news on the Burger King property.
Oh, go ahead.
Couple questions. So the option expired for them, is that what you're trying to say?
I'm not using the correct term. I think they had a purchase agreement with an expiration date, and the property owner wouldn't extend it. So I'm using the term option loosely. I mean,
Right.
basically, they had exclusive rights. They, being this developer, Woda Cooper Companies, had exclusive rights,
It just sounds
and
like
they
an
lost.
expiration of an option. Okay, back to the Nokomis property. Is there any, I don't know how to word this. Is there any advantage for us to introduce part of that parking lot that we own to that?
Yeah,
That mix?
absolutely. The parking lot is larger than is necessary for both blocks, let alone just the east block if the west block is redeveloped with its own presumably underground parking. So yes, we've been talking with the developer, and he's been asking the question, how much of that parking lot could the city give up? And we really don't know, because some of that parking lot is necessary for that easterly block. And I do not know what our legal obligations are, but I presume that just as a matter of practice, we would want to leave enough parking for those businesses in the east block and for future redevelopment of the east block as well. So some of that parking lot could probably be incorporated into the redevelopment of the west block, but I can't tell you exactly how much. And but that is part of the discussions we're having with that developer.
Excellent, thank you.
All right.
So still no news on the Burger King. It is in the same circumstances before, where the owner and the leaseholder have to resolve their issues. In Crystal Shopping Center, the former Caribou space, there is a new business that will be opening there within a month or two called Ambiance Cafe. It's going to be a small coffee shop type place, but they are going to be coming to the Planning Commission and the Council in March for a conditional use permit to also use it as an event center. The owner has an existing catering business, and they are looking to have their own place to cater small events. So what they'll do is they'll close their cafe and hold the events in the cafe space when they have a special event. So that will be coming before you in March, and I mean, they could open the cafe right now. It's a permitted use, but I don't think they're quite ready to open yet. So that is coming in the former Caribou space in the north end of the west building in the Crystal Shopping Center, just north of Pet Supplies Plus. And then finally, down at 36th and Douglas, the owner of the Pizza Hut is still exploring their options for that property. The former Aquatropics space, I got confirmation today that a bakery and ice cream shop is going to be opening there in a couple of months. And they will also have they will be selling as a retail store locally made products, like jams, jellies, things like that. That'll be sort of their focus. The one thing that I didn't ask, believe it or not, but was told, they are not going to have a deep fryer, so they won't have any donuts. So they will have other types of baked goods, though. So it won't be a donut shop, but it will be a bakery apart from that. is what I've been told. So that is what we have coming up in the near future.
Any idea on timeline for the bakery? Or you said meeting with planning commission and.
Oh, for the cafe?
Yeah, for the
Uh,
cafe ambiance, but for the ice cream bakery.
The bakery ice cream shop at 36th and Douglas does not need any zoning approval. They just need to get their building and plumbing permits. So I think they're working on their plans right now, and we expect that they would be opening maybe in a couple of months, maybe mid-April-ish.
Nice.
I mean, don't hold me to that. They have a lot of stuff to figure out yet,
Summer.
but that's a good guess.
Oh, great news.
Will there be like seating in there? Can
Yes, both ambiance and I think it's going to be called Bella's at 36th and Douglas. We'll have indoor seating in addition to the retail and the food, the to-go.
great.
Excellent, yeah.
That's great news.
All right. Any other questions on that? No, and John, thank you so much. Really great news and great update, good information. So, all right, on to other business, item number 7. Any other business or other discussion? All right, and that brings us to adjournment. Looking for a motion. Jim?
I'd like to move adjournment.
All right. John, seconded. All right. Do we roll call for that also?
Commissioner Adams?
Thank you.
Aye.
Commissioner Banks? Commissioner Buduszewski?
Aye.
Commissioner Cummings?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaiser?
Aye.
Commissioner LaRoche?
Aye.
Commissioner Parsons?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, we're adjourned.
All right.